Hi everybody, my name is Rani Rego. I am a solicitor, sessional academic and PhD candidate at the University of Newcastle Law School. So I am here today to talk about 10 things that really irritate your lecturer about your legal writing. So this is just some tips for people who are at law school and to give an understanding of what we're looking for and what we don't like. So firstly, informal language. You're at law school. You are being assessed on how well you communicate in a formal setting. We are preparing you for the real world, which means when you get out of law school, you will be communicating in an informal way, whether you are in academia, whether you are a practicing solicitor, or whether you go on to do other work that involves the law. So please don't use conversational text-like language in a formal law assessment. 2, strange synonyms. We're assessing you on how well you understand the law and obviously meet the criteria for the assessment. We already know you are smart, so you do not need to use complex synonyms and language to demonstrate depth. In fact, it's actually the opposite. If you understand what you are saying, you should be able to communicate that in a very simple way. And anyone who is reading it should be able to understand what you are saying. 3, long sentences. So this is just general of writing. If you have to stop or reread something that you have written, it's too long. So for example, a sentence that is 3 sentences long, that's way too long. So you need to think about where grammar needs to be placed or breaking it up into a few additional sentences. Grammatical errors is another one, not only because us academics can be pedants, but it is more than that. When you are a lawyer, your job is to communicate, both orally and written. And if you cannot do that without grammatical errors, it reduces the formality and the reliability and credibility of your work, in essence. So make sure when you are doing your assessments that you reread it, that you don't just rely on spell check, but you actually read it and make sure that the grammar is perfect. Okay. I often see in assessments that people get the capitalization of courts wrong. So when you're talking about a court, so a court, it's just a small c, for example. But if you're talking about a particular court, i.e. the High Court or the Supreme Court of New South Wales, you must capitalise it. That is a very fundamental thing that I see some people get wrong at times. Another thing, when you are talking about a judgment of a magistrate or a judge, it is without an E, okay? That is critical. Judgment is without an E. Make sure it's right. Another thing that we see people get mixed up with is tense and person. So tense is where you're talking about whether it's present tense or past tense. Make sure you are consistent in the way you write, and make sure that you're checking with your lecturer if you're unsure about those things. Also person, when you're writing a law assessment, typically you don't include I believe or I think, unless it's something like a reflection. The reason for that is because we are asking you to use the law, legal principles, to argue a point. It's not about what you believe, it's about an argument you are able to construct using the material you have. So typically, for example, as a lawyer, I would not write a submission to the court saying, I believe that, Your Honour, my client should get the following sentence because of X, Y, Z. You would say the client, the court should consider this for the client based on X, Y, Z. So just make sure that you are checking with your lecturer as well if you are unsure in what person you should write. Another thing, direct quoting. I see a lot of students putting slabs of passages in quoting. Look, I understand sometimes that you can't say it better than someone else, and I often encounter that myself. But quoting should be limited, very limited, because what it means is when you're overquoting is that your lecturer can't really discern whether that's your understanding or it's just you're quoting someone. We are judging you on how well you create an argument and you express yourself. And if you're quoting too much, we aren't able to assess you on your understanding. Another thing, dot pointing. Dot pointing can be very useful to get across points, although when you are writing a formal essay, for example, you should perhaps limit that because it reduces the formality of the work. It might be more proper to list something that you're going to talk about in a sentence, but separating it by a semicolon, for example. Lastly, the use of gratuitous Latin. Okay, we are not we're living in a thankfully society that has the plain English movement. Please do not use Latin when you could use English. We know that that's our history of the law, but there are much better ways to express yourself. So think about it carefully before you use it. So I hope that some of these tips have been useful, and happy writing. Thank you.